All right, now let's start to get into some of the good stuff. We've actually set the stage for this course. Now let's start to build the foundation. We're going to start off with Finance 101. This is one of my favorite presentations. This is going to lay the groundwork for a lot of our future lessons and future modules. So this is going to be one of the most important topics that we're going to cover, and we're going to refer back to this a lot. Now, I also said that we'd be using our tanks a lot in this example because this is the natural flow of money, and it's a very great representation of how your money works, and we can visually start to see everything. Also, in this presentation, I am going to use some numbers because, like I said, 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. Somebody could tell you that it's 5, somebody could tell you that it's 3, but it's always going to be 4. Numbers don't lie. And one of the promises that I made you is that in this course, we would be using a lot more fact and a lot less fiction, because a lot of trainings that you might watch just are people's opinions or just random statements without actually backing it up with the numbers. So in this particular training, we're going to jump into some of the numbers. And it's also going to challenge some of your current beliefs for some of you, because a lot of what you've been taught and a lot of what we've all been programmed might go against what I'm about to say. So once again, I encourage you to be open-minded and just look at the actual numbers and see if it actually makes sense. So starting off with a little controversial statement, which is that you finance everything that you buy. Every major capital purchase that you make, you're actually financing it. Now you might say, no, not me. I pay cash for everything. I don't like to take out loans or borrow money or get into debt because I don't want to pay all that interest. So I pay cash, so I don't finance, right? But you do, because you are either going to borrow from a lender and pay interest for the use of their money, right? So you're going to borrow the funds from someone else and you're going to pay interest to use their money. And you're going to pay that back with your future income. Money that you haven't even made yet, right? You're going to be using your income to pay back this money that you're borrowing. So that's one way that you finance every purchase, is that you borrow it and you pay interest. The second option is that you spend the money that you have saved. Now, if you do that, okay, you save interest by paying cash, but you lose the interest you would have earned had you not drained the tank. Now remember, I've talked a lot about opportunity cost. Opportunity cost in this example is what could that money have earned if you hadn't paid cash, right? Okay, so let's take a look at some actual numbers. Okay, so to illustrate the concept that you finance everything you buy, we're going to use and assume the following. 30,000, okay? 30,000 is going to be this major capital purchase. Maybe that's 1 year of college. Maybe that's a car. Maybe that's a down payment on a house, or maybe it's an investment of some sort, or maybe you're going to put on some solar panels or something like that. But whatever this major capital purchase is, all right, oops, let me back that up there so we can still see our 5%. Let's say that you have the option to finance that $30,000 at 5%, okay? And we're going to be looking over a 5-year window, 5-year financing window, or in other words, 60 months. Okay, so over 5 years, 60 months, with a $566.14 payment. Okay, so $566 a month is the payment if we finance it. So if we borrow $30,000 at 5% and we pay $566 over 5 years or 60 months, okay, then we're going to see what that looks like. But we're also going to look at what we call a 5% opportunity cost. What does that mean? Well, what that means is that instead of putting your $566 towards this payment for the next 5 years, what if you could have invested that at 5%, all right? Or what if you have $30,000 that you have in savings that's currently earning 5%? These are some of our initial assumptions that we're going to use as we walk through this, okay? So you have $30,000 saved in your tank. So this is the green tank over here behind these numbers. We have $30,000 saved, all right, that you need to make a purchase for that same $30,000. Okay, you're going to have the option to finance it. Okay, you earn 5% interest in your tank, and all right, the lender charges 5% interest on the loan. So in other words, you were earning 5% in your tank, right? The money that's in your tank. If you have $30,000 in your tank, you were earning 5%, and the lender is charging you 5% as well to borrow the money. Okay. So we're looking at 60 months, like I said, 5 years is what we're looking at. And we're looking at, all right, the money in the safe tank, okay? And we're going to look at financing it first. So option one is we're going to finance it. Remember, the initial cost was the $30,000, all right? The financing rate is 5%, so we're borrowing somebody else's money at 5%. And we're going to be paying back $566 over 5 years, right? 60 months. And we could have earned 5% in this tank. So this tank right here is currently earning 5%, right? If we don't spend it, okay? That's our current situation. So you could pay cash, all right? But it would require draining the tank. If we drain the tank, okay, then we no longer have that money earning 5%. Draining the tank resets compounding. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that almost everyone makes on their money is that they spend it. I know that sounds crazy, but if you spend the money, it never has time to actually compound. But we save money for a car, then we pay cash for a car. We save money for college, and then we spend cash on college, or we use our savings, right? We drain our tank, right? And pay cash for college. We save for retirement in a 401k or an IRA or something like that. And then what do we do in retirement? We spend it. Okay, so you have to think about what is that costing you every time you drain the tank, right? Okay, now, when we borrow the money, okay, if we borrow $30,000, your money earns interest. So in other words, this money is still going to keep growing if we borrow somebody else's money. Using other people's money, you've probably heard of OPM. I know Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins, a lot of those people always refer to OPM, or other people's money. When you use other people's money, okay, you're paying interest. So if we borrow money right here, we're paying them interest. So we're earning interest on our money, we're paying them interest. But you, in this case, if you finance it, if you're going to borrow the $30,000 from somebody else instead of draining the tank, then you maintain control. How much is that worth to you to maintain control and have access? Now, one of the questions that a lot of people have these questions about whether or not we should drain the tank or whether or not we should borrow somebody else's money. But you look at it a lot of times mathematically instead of looking at it in some emotional terms. Like how much better do you feel knowing that you have that $30,000 in a safe account? Safe being the key word there. Guaranteed to never lose would be considered safe. And another word is access, right? What if you have access to that money? If you have access to that money and it's safe, how does that make you feel? Right? Some things to consider there. All right. When we borrow somebody else's money, we eventually pay them back because remember, $566 a month is what we're paying over 5 years or 60 months. All right. So you can see that over time, eventually, we're going to have them paid back. But we borrowed $30,000, all right? We paid almost $4,000 of interest, okay? But because we weren't investing the $566 over here at 5%, because that was our opportunity cost number, right? That was how much we could have earned. But because we didn't earn, right, that interest from investing the $566, then we have interest lost, right? Interest lost, that's your opportunity cost. So in other words, the total cost to borrow $30,000 at 5%, the total cost is $38,501. Okay, think about that for a minute. $38,501 is the total cost by the time you add up the $30,000 plus all the interest that you pay, all right, to borrow the money, plus the lost interest that you could have earned if you would have invested $566 into your account. Now notice for a minute what's happening over here to your actual safe tank. Your safe tank has also grown during that same time frame. So while we were calculating the cost of borrowing all that money over those 5 years, your savings was actually growing at 5%. So your savings grew to $38,501, which is the exact same number that it cost you to borrow the money at 5%. Okay? Now, some of you might be saying, well, what about making extra payments? What if we put an extra $200 a month towards that $566? Well, if you pay extra money towards it, then you are saving interest, but you're paying extra money that could have gone into your investment. So you have a larger opportunity cost. Let me show you. So look at before. Before, the interest was just about $4,000, right? In fact, let me go like this. $4,000 in interest, right? Just about, and about $4,500 in lost opportunity cost. Okay? So $4,000 in interest, $4,500 in lost opportunity cost. If you make an extra payment of $200 a month, it's going to speed up the time it takes to pay off that loan, which is going to reduce the interest. So now you're only paying just under $3,000 of interest, but now you've got more money going towards paying off that loan instead of going towards other places that could have been earning 5%. So now you've got a lost opportunity cost of $5,600 instead of $4,500. So the actual cost is still $38,501. It doesn't actually change the cost of borrowing the money. So making extra principal payments doesn't change the cost to borrow the money. Okay, so now let's take a look at what about a higher yield than what it costs to borrow. So what if we could earn 5% over here on our safe account, which grew to that $38,501, and what if we could borrow money at a lower rate, like 1.9 for example, instead of 5? So if we could borrow the money at less than what we're actually earning on our money, then it only costs us $36,000 to finance it, right? It only costs us $36,000 to borrow $30,000. And our money grew to $38,000. I actually had a client once that we were talking about why you shouldn't use 529 accounts to pay for college. And he said, why don't you like 529 accounts? I've got a great 529 account over here, would have been his 529. And he says it's been earning 9%. And I said, wow, that's unfortunate. He said, well, what do you mean? 9% is a great rate of return. And I said, yeah, it's a great rate of return. And now you have to drain the tank. You have to spend the money on college. You have to pay cash for college so that you don't finance it, right? But you're going to be giving up the 9% that you could have earned. So if you could borrow money for college at less than 9%, it would be better to borrow the money to pay for college and allow your money to keep compounding. Now, of course, that's why we don't like 529 accounts, because you have to use them for education expenses. And so you wouldn't necessarily want your 529 account to just keep growing. But what about, financing a car? What if you could get a really low rate on financing a car? Should you pay cash for a car or should you finance a car? Right? Something to consider and think about. Okay, now at this point, this is probably making sense logically. You can see the numbers, you can see, how the math works, but most people are not used to earning 5% over here on a safe tank, right? Money that they have access to, money that's guaranteed to never lose. Most people are used to making, maybe less than 1% on a savings account. So if you're earning less than 1% on a savings account, or even 1.9% in this example, then your money is not going to earn 5%. It's only going to earn 1.9 in this example, which is going to grow to $32,985 over 5 years. And over that same time, to borrow the money at 5%, it's going to only cost you $34,000 to borrow the money. Now, why does it cost less to borrow the money when the interest rate is still 5%? It's kind of confusing, right? Well, it's because the opportunity cost, right? That opportunity cost right there is less, because the $566 a month couldn't have earned 5% if you were putting it over here where it was only earning 1.9%. So if you were only earning 1.9% over here, then your opportunity cost is less. So that makes the cost to borrow money less. Okay, now let's shift gears and talk about paying cash. We've talked about financing. Now let's talk about the second option, which is to pay cash. And you can see this big old, I do not want to borrow any money. I've been programmed to never borrow money. I don't like debt. I don't want to pay any interest, right? We don't like paying interest to other people, so we do not want to ever borrow money. We like to earn interest, okay? But we must drain the tank, killing the compounding. So watch what happens. If we pay cash, boom, just like magic, it's gone. Poof, right? Gone. The money is gone. You paid cash. Congratulations, you did not have to pay any interest to somebody else to borrow their money. But because you just paid cash, you've got an outflow of $30,000. It went right out here, all right, and you paid cash and drained the tank. So the question is, right, here's our assumptions. We paid $30,000 instead of financing at 5%, right? But remember this opportunity cost of 5%, okay? Drain the tank to make the purchase. The other big problem, lost control of purchasing dollars, meaning this is gone, right? We no longer have money in case of, what if you lost a job or something like that? Wouldn't you have liked to have $30,000 in that tank? But no, you've lost control of it, and you lost the interest that it was earning. This is no longer, you remember the old nursery rhyme, the goose that lays the golden eggs? It's that simple. You don't kill the goose. When you kill the goose, you're losing the interest on that money, okay? So what happens is that now you've got to spend the next 5 years, instead of making payments to borrow the money, you've got to spend the next 5 years to fill that tank back up, right? Because you just drained it. So you've got to fill it back up, but you've also got to fill it up plus what you lost. You've got to pay yourself back the interest that you could have earned if you would have let that money continue to borrow. So don't think that you just pay $30,000 and then put $30,000 back into your account. You have to put $38,501. You have to put all of the money back into your account plus the interest, which is $566 a month back into your account at 5%. That's going to get you back to the $38,501, right? So you have a self-payment. So you don't have a payment to somebody else, but you have a payment to yourself, all right? So compare the cost of purchasing versus the tank's future value. You have to think of what that tank could have earned, right? Or the opportunity cost or lost opportunity, right? Which offers the most control? Ask yourself that. Which one do you like better? If the cost is the same. Now remember, if the cost that you're earning on your safe tank is 5% and the cost to borrow is 5%, remember, it's the same. To pay cash, it's $38,501. To finance, it's $38,501. If mathematically it's the same, then which one offers the most control? something to think about. Would you rather borrow somebody else's money so that you can keep control of your money? All right, in summary, there are some things to consider when you're deciding on whether you should borrow the money or drain your tank. First of all, assuming that you earn the same rate of interest on your money as it would cost you to borrow the money, then the cost would be the same. If you're earning 5% here and it costs you 5% to borrow the money here, it would cost you the same. All right? Paying cash drains the tank and resets the compounding. One of the beauties of compound interest, if you've ever seen a compound interest chart, it goes like this. The key behind compound interest is allowing your money to compound over time. So every time we reset the compounding, that's not good. All right? If money in your tank could earn more interest than it costs to borrow, so maybe you're earning 5 over here and you can borrow at 3 over here, all right? Consider the opportunity cost of draining the tank plus giving up control. So not only would you lose not only would you lose control to drain the tank, but it would actually cost you more money to do it that way if your situation's like this, okay? Maintaining control of your money may even be worth paying higher interest. Now, I shared an experience in my webinar about losing our house. And I had a lot of money in equity. I had a lot of equity in my house that I thought, was like my backup savings account. But when the market crashed and when I was when I was starting up that company and when I was running into all those financial challenges, I didn't qualify to access that money. And I lost all of that money because I did not have control of it. The bank had control of it. I didn't have control of it. If I could have gone back in time, knowing what I know now, if I could go back in time, I would rather have all of that equity in a mason jar in my freezer earning 0%, right? I would gladly take 0% here and owe 3.5% on a mortgage. If I could go back and do it all over again, mathematically, that does not make sense mathematically. But for me, right, I would rather have access and control over all of that money. I don't even care if it's earning any interest. And I would borrow the money just because I want to be in control of that money. I might be able to take that money and put it into an investment that ends up earning 10 or 12%, way more than I'm earning or than I'm paying here, because I have access, right, and control of that money. Even though mathematically it doesn't make any sense. Just some things to consider and to think about, right? If it costs more to borrow than you can earn, perhaps you should consider other tank alternatives. Meaning, if you're stuck over here at the bank earning less than 1%, and everything you try to borrow costs you more than that. I mean, a car loan is going to cost you more than that. College is going to cost you more than that. A mortgage is obviously going to cost you more than that. So if it's always costing you more money to borrow the money than what you're earning, then you've got to reevaluate this tank right here. There are investments out there that earn 6 to 8% on average without any risk of losing money in the market, right? And that give you access and control of the money, and that even allow you to use as collateral, which we're going to get into all that later. But there are opportunities out there. Now remember, one of the benefits of this course is that you can book an appointment with us anytime you want for free consultations to ask us any questions about these numbers. Maybe you want to put your own numbers to some of this if you want. That's fine, we can do that. If you're looking for other alternatives of where you can put your money in a safe tank, we can talk about that as well. So remember, if you have any questions, reach out to us anytime. Also, go into our Facebook private group where you can ask questions about Finance 101. We can have a discussion in there as well. And we can have maybe some feedback from some of the other members. So hopefully this is helpful. Go ahead and click on the next lesson and we'll see you over there.